We've gone over the whole Clippers roster, and it seems as though they have one of the best chances to win the title. How much would a title even mean to Clipper fans? What does it even mean to be a Clipper fan? We have brought back a Clipper fan you might be very familiar with to talk about it all on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day. I am your host, Darian Vaziri, Clipper fan for 18 years. Also have my own YouTube channel known as Dime Dropper, where I take vlogs at Clipper games and talk about Clipper and Laker games after they happen. For today's episode, I'm really pleased to bring back one of the former hosts of Locked On Clippers, Chuck Mockler. Welcome back.
Thank you. Feels good to be back. You've been doing a great job. I'm happy the Locked On Clippers podcast is in your hands, Darian. Clippers fans, yes, be happy that this man is hosting your daily podcast.
Thank you. And obviously, I got to benefit from a little bit of the following that you guys had built up. You know what I'm saying? Some of the same listeners. I mean, I'm not starting from scratch here, so I appreciate you guys a lot for that. And it's hard. I got to feel like I got to live up to it. You guys had good chemistry, like Ralph Lawler and Bill Walton.
Man, that was the dream. If one day I can fill any kind of shoes or anything that Ralph Lawler and Bill Walton have worn, I'll be hyped.
So I guess I wanted to talk in this episode. We're going to be talking about more fan-centric things. I've talked about the roster in depth, but I kind of wanted to go over the more emotional side of things going into this year. I mean, this is a really big year for Clipper fans. I think the only other season I felt this sort of optimism in terms of really being confident the Clippers could really win the championship was the 2019-20 season. And I think a lot of that was because of the hype of getting the guy who had just won the finals MVP. How are you feeling going into this season so far? Actually, before I ask that, I want to ask your Clipper origin story, as a fan, because everyone always asks, how are you a Clipper fan to me? And I'm guessing you get the same question.
Yeah, so I'm from Montana originally. And I would, my mom loved basketball. She hated Kobe Bryant, loved how he played, but hated playing him. So we'd always just watch basketball. And I was hooked on the knuckleheads, man. You don't see, I don't know how familiar you are with the state of Montana and how basketball is played there. It's different than how the knuckleheads play basketball. So it was something that you didn't get to see a lot of. And just that excitement just kind of hooked me, right? These guys are throwing double backboard alley-oops and they're young. And they're, even at that age, I knew that the Clippers weren't as liked as the Lakers, right? I wasn't that naive. So that got me hooked a little early. They were always on the radar. And then when I moved out here, man, I've been here a little over 10 years or so. It was, I'd followed the team and we got here right when Lob City was doing its thing. So I could actually go to games for the first time and things like that. And, when you move to a new city and the Clippers are playing that kind of basketball, you just get hyped. And then, I've just been with them ever since, man. It's a team that, if you're not part of what people usually like, or if you've kind of had, certain things happen in your life that make you go left instead of right and things like that, you root for the Clippers. And that was definitely that's where I'm at with it for sure.
Did you move to LA because of the Clippers, or it was a job
No,
opportunity?
I did not move to LA because of the Clippers. That would have been sick if that was a job opportunity. No, I moved out here with my partner. She and I are still together, so it was a big swing that worked out pretty well on a lot of fronts.
Yeah.
So
So I think that's a good point you make. It feels like a lot of Clipper fans, at least for me, I'm definitely one of those people that doesn't like to really go with the crowd. And my whole family, my uncles are
as we're both wearing Dodgers apparel, but
yeah. Well, here's the thing. At least here's my defense on that. People might ask, why are you a Dodger fan and a Clipper fan? And there's actually a lot more overlap than people think. The difference to me is I lived in LA County, and the Dodgers are the only MLB team in LA County.
Fuck the Angels.
The Angels play in Anaheim. So Staples Center, though, both teams played, because I didn't, I was born in 98, so I started watching right after the Knuckleheads, Elton Brand, Sam Cassell era, and the Clippers and the Lakers are both in the Staples Center, so it's equidistant. There's a choice to me. Whereas the Dodgers, that was the closest stadium I could go to, so Yeah, I wasn't one to go with the crowd, and obviously the ticket prices was a huge thing as someone that grew up in LA.
Oh yeah, I mean, even someone moving to LA, it was like, I don't know, y'all don't care about your fans very much. Charging this much, don't even do giveaways on the other side of the hall.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they just don't necessarily. They could say they don't need to, but
Right,
I
Dodgers
guess
still
yeah.
do 'em.
Clipper fans are ones that I would say go against the grain. I feel like you could say
Especially
they're
you're from LA, like
yeah.
Carl Tart, who's been on our show, like all you guys who were like from LA and just continuously rep the Clippers and have for so long, like that is what the base is built on. And like transplant Clippers fans need that, because like that's, we need other people who are Clippers fans, and talking to people who've been here since day one who are Clippers fans, like it's a very real support network for sure.
Oh yeah, dude, it was hard. I mean, growing up in school, I want to say my elementary school, there were no like I'd have a class and I was the only Clipper fan, and I was trying to get other people to be Clipper fans, but they would just end up going with what their parents wanted.
Right.
And then when I got to high school, it was bad. Like there were a couple other big Clipper fans within the Lob City era, but when we lost, everyone was going to me. Like everyone.
Oh yeah,
it was brutal. So I would say that's one thing that people that don't live in LA don't understand really, is that when most other teams lose locally, at least you can go outside and sulk with the rest of your Boston people or your
right,
Houston fans. Whereas we go out after we lose and we get made fun of
people
by
just
everybody.
yell at us from their cars as they drive by. Like that's just what happens.
And that's what I think makes it the hardest as a Clipper fan when your team loses, is because you don't just face the pain of losing. It's like you face that and then everybody piles on you on top of it. And before, it really didn't matter when the Clippers were always terrible. But
Sure.
now that there's been expectations and noise, it's like Laker fans seem to relish our downfall even more.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, especially because you and I both probably spend too much time on Twitter and things like that. So I think we see kind of a harsher side of it too. But like, I have noticed like just actual in-person interactions with people. Like I went to an LAFC game the other week. And
awesome. I encourage people to go down there. Beautiful new stadium.
I was in the supporter section. I need to get to a playoff game in there, bro. It was, oh my God. I could talk for an hour about that. But like I met people who are Lakers fans, and in person now, it's funnier because you get the shit. They're like, oh, you like the Clippers? And then it's like the fact that they've had to be so good for so long that it literally only feels like the year 2022 is when people who hated the Clippers have kind of realized that they've been really good the last 10 years or so. So like the in-person stuff's a little easier, but online it's just, I'll have people who don't even know me just tweet at me like the video of Paul George hitting the side of the backboard. I'm like, dude, that was so long ago. like just get off my back.
Yeah, that is true. I'd say in person, especially like if it's over a certain age group, like 30 plus, I feel like those Laker fans have seen the Lakers be good and the Clippers be bad for so long. They have a little bit more sympathy. As I'd say, I feel like a lot of the kids my age and younger really don't like the Clippers because in their lifetime we've actually been a threat, and they don't like to admit it, but we have been. It's my uncle's like 35, my other one's like 45, 50.
I was like, I'm 32. Your uncle's young as hell.
He's very young. That's a whole different another story. But they're diehard Laker fans. But part of the reason I grew up not really a Laker hater was because they were Clippers sympathizers. Like if the Clippers were playing in the playoffs against a non-LA team, they'd root for the Clippers. They'd be like, yes, LA team. Yeah. So like they didn't have any ill will. They just don't like it when the Clippers are better than the Lakers. They still like,
which I get.
Yeah,
like, I understand that. Like I loved it when the Lakers still are worse than the Clippers right now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's give and take, right? Like we understand. I think Clippers fans understand. Like we don't need the other side to like us. We just need them maybe to be like, okay, you guys are a real threat, and at this season, a lot better than the Lakers are going to be.
So that's actually great. Coming up, we're going to talk about this season's team. I've called it the greatest Clipper team of all time. We are going to get into it coming up. I went to the gym today, and again, I was still missing something not too light, not too heavy, and that was a cookie dough chunk puff from Built Bar. It has all the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, it's healthy for you. It has 160 calories and 15 grams of protein in them. You got to run to Built.com to snag a box for you and the family, but make sure you don't get too comfortable or else your kids might take them because they're so good. Like all Built Bars, the new cookie dough chunk puff is covered in 100% real chocolate. Not that fake stuff. It's real chocolate, so you know it's going to taste good. What's great about Built is that all of their bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. So eat something that tastes good and is good for you to start your day or whenever you go to the gym or do any athletic activity, or if you just want to get it on the way to work. You are going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff, whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or just a quick bite. Go to built.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON15 and get 15% off your order. That's LOCKEDON15. All right. Now we're going to get into the Clipper roster, the 2022-23 Clipper roster. This is year 3 of the Ty Lue experiment, and it seems as though the trust that Clipper fans have now in Ty Lue as opposed to Glenn Rivers, it seems like has made the difference in terms of really believing that the Clippers can do this. How are you feeling, Chuck, going in to this season?
I might be overly confident. I share your sentiment that this is like the best Clippers roster you've seen. It feels like we've said that 2 of the last 3 years, right? Like every year this team, through Lawrence Frank, through getting Ty Lue, gets better. If it's on the margins, we get better with, finding gems like Jackson and Batum and hopefully Wall. And then on the big side, we got better with Kawhi and Paul George. So like you just look at this roster and like 2K ratings aside, I just don't take out the first 5, right? You take out the first 5, you look at the rest of the roster. It's still a good roster. We're getting a fully healthy Kawhi. We're getting a fully healthy Paul George. All the chatter from like Clint Parks and like people like that who are like close to that stuff. It's just like, I don't know, man. I'm past the point of being worried that we're favorites, and I'm ready to just start kind of embracing it. And if that means not freaking out at like a regular season loss to the Magic or some insane thing like that, which will happen at some point this year. But what you said about Ty Lue, like the trust is there. We've been down 2-0 with him 4 times. Yeah.
Oh. Have we been down 4 times 2-0?
Because it was 2 times when we went. Yeah,
3 times, I thought, right? Because just the 2021 playoffs, right?
Yeah, it was those 2. And it's like, and we're good. He makes the adjustments. We've seen it happen. We haven't, you mentioned Rivers, like we didn't get adjustments. We got run your head into the wall until the wall breaks and you think the strategy works. So I'm confident, man. I don't know what our win total is going to be. I hope we're in the top 3 seeds, but like it's there for the taking for the Clippers. Like the hype is deserved, more so than it has been, I think, in any other season for the Clips. We just got to deliver.
I guess
we just got to make it happen.
Follow-up question is, how important do you think the regular season really is in terms of record? Because I feel like that's something that even in Lob City times, we've kind of just hoped that we get to the playoffs healthy, but then we end up playing these grueling first-round series. Like we haven't had an easy first-round series since 2006 against Denver. Like every single series we play, Memphis was a bloodbath 2 years in a row. And then we had Golden State and San Antonio, which gave us some great game 7s at the Staples Center. And then, we lost the first round the next 2 years with the injuries. And then with Lou Williams lost to Golden State. And then Dallas has made us sweat really hard 2 years. So what do you think we need a better seed?
I think we need a top 3 seed.
I agree.
I don't know if this team in terms of like rest and things is built for a 1 seed. The talent's there, right?
Yeah.
Like don't get me wrong. Like if Kawhi and PG play 65 games together, there's probably a good shot we'll be a top 2 seed. But like if we just got to be 2 or 3 and I'm happy. 4, sure, like you get the home court and stuff like that, but that second round matchup is, you're going against the favorites for the most part. So like I think we got to be top 3. Where are you at with it? Like
I said top 3 because I've said multiple times that there's only 2 teams in the history of the NBA, at least in the shot clock era, that have won a championship lower than the 3 seed. And that was the Rockets with Hakeem the second year, and then 69 Celtics, Bill Russell.
Yeah. So when basketball was not what it is anymore.
Yeah. And the Clippers need to, I think, get a top 3 seed, but it would be really nice to get the 2 seed for the first time. We had it in 2020, but we didn't get to reap the benefits of that. It would be really nice for the first time for the first time in Clipper history to start the second round at home at Staples Center. We've never had that luxury, and to potentially play a game 7 at home in the second round would just be awesome. Like, I guess my question would be, who do you think Would you say your favorite would be the Warriors to finish first in the West in the regular season?
So it feels like the Warriors are almost on this kind of similar path with the Clippers, where they're like, we got to manage our stars.
Yeah.
Like, and something like that. I mean, I don't know. I could see Memphis trying way too hard to get the first seed. Like, I mean, Denver's my biggest fear.
What's Jamal Murray's status? Do we know anything about that?
Absolutely no idea.
That's a big if.
That is a big if. But if he comes back healthy, then it's just a nightmare, right? But like, I think Memphis is still young enough that they like really care about like being the 1 seed and stuff like that, which I think will kind of be a detriment to them. I don't think it's going to be the Suns, but I would pencil in like Grizzlies or Mavs. I wouldn't be surprised if either of those teams got it. Luka's terrifying. He's getting the Eurobasket bump, which Zoo's also getting. But like, I think it's going to be kind of the teams that skew younger who are going to really go for that 1 seed.
Do you still feel that confidence in Memphis, even though I'm hearing that Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be out till like January or something? He had some procedure. Yeah, no, it's a big loss.
All right, then I'm going to probably say the Mavs. I'll say the Mavs.
If Dallas gets the 1, because people have been saying that you saw in that survey where they picked us favorite to win the championship that they said the Mavericks had the worst offseason. I think that's because they lost Jalen Brunson. They're saying that, but do you think that the Mavericks are going to be good enough to even get a 1 seed?
I think they're regular season good enough for sure. I don't think Jalen Brunson, I don't think if they kept him that would have propelled them to the 1 seed. But Luka's Luka, dude, and we're Clippers fans. We've been tortured by this guy. Even when we win the series, we've been tortured by how good Luka is. So I just can't, because I'm looking at the other teams and it's like, I don't know if the Wolves can be the 1 seed.
I guess the more you're talking, the more I believe the Clippers could actually do this. Even with
all right, I'll take it. Let's go. Let's get that belief. But you're right though, right? Like those older teams, it's like Warriors.
They're not convincing.
Clippers. Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be the Lakers. It's not going to be the Pels. Probably not going to be the Jazz. And
you think we're writing Phoenix off too easily for a regular season?
I don't even know, man. I think my Clippers fandom and just like the Chris Paul thing, like just watching what happened in Game 7, I'm like, y'all are tired. Yeah. Like Chris Paul is exhausted at trying to win a championship at this point. And I don't know if they couldn't do it last year. And now like you bring DeAndre Ayton back and you're like, hey, we brought you back only because the offer got matched. Let's go. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, like where do you go from? It's going to be such a if I'm a Suns fan, this regular season would be such a drag because it's like no matter what you do, it doesn't matter till April. Like it really doesn't matter. Yeah, I think honestly, even if Kawhi plays, let's say 55 games and Paul plays like 60, what's interesting is
I would love that.
I think on a given night though, we've shown that even if you miss one of them or even both of them, the Clippers on a given night could get the job done because there's other teams that may have injuries or guys resting. So many stars don't play the back-to-backs anymore that you play a team like you get the Mavs without Luka one night. There you go. Well, one thing we haven't talked about with the Mavs, if Luka gets injured for like 20 games, what would happen to that team?
I mean, it's what happened to the Clippers last year when Paul George was out, right? Like you're just like, well, let's hope everyone else can pull their weight. And the Clippers roster is built way better to pull their weight than that Mavs roster is. But you're right, man. If he misses, dude, not even 20, he misses 2 weeks. The Western Conference is brutal. Like he misses 10 games. They're lucky to go 500 in those 10 games.
So I guess it really comes down to, I think, at least for us, the biggest thing is Kawhi Leonard's health. You mentioned Clint Parks as trainer. Have you heard anything else about Kawhi? Because we haven't heard that he's cleared for 5-on-5, which kind of concerns me. But then I've also heard rumblings from like him and people around the situation that he could be ready to go.
My thing with the 5-on-5 is like, it's the team. It's like team 5-on-5, right? Like it's like Clippers facility 5-on-5.
Oh, okay. You're saying he's playing in pickup games.
For me, I think there's a little bit of like, let's get a run in, let's get some time, like, I think it's maybe just like a lawyer version of like, he can't play 5-on-5 within this area on the Clippers thing. Like, I don't know, man. I've just seen kind of what Clint's tweeted about and things like that. Like if Clint Parks is saying that Kawhi is coming back ready and he's ready to like make people remember how good he is, other than Chris Haynes, like that's as close as you're getting to what Kawhi has to say. I think he's going to be ready. Yeah, man. I don't see anything in his way from being an opening night. And I'm a big believer in if they're in promo material, they're going to play. philosophy with like following the Clippers, and they've been promoting the hell out of Kawhi Leonard. They had him smiling today on the Twitter account. Like, they've been putting Kawhi in a lot of promotional stuff, and
that's true.
I know the Clippers marketing is a little whatever, but they don't put people in stuff if they're not going to play, and I think that's my biggest indicator that he's going to be ready.
Hey, those are good signs to hear for sure, because I mean, it's been so. It really hasn't been as long as a lot of people on like Twitter or other places like to suggest that Kawhi hasn't played, but it has been a while. I mean, I can't wait to see that guy play for the Clippers again. It's like we got 2 seasons, and both of them were shortened seasons.
Yes.
Of this guy who's the best player that we've ever had on our franchise history, especially in LA, play for the Clippers. So I can't wait to see it again, and hopefully he's back playing at his best. But you mentioned opening night, and coming up, we're going to be talking about opening night a little bit, our opponent, but mainly one of our old friends who's gone to the other side and is talking a whole lot, and it's not going to be the end of it coming up. All right, to close out, the Clippers and the Lakers will be playing each other on opening night like we've seen so many times in recent years, and hopefully for Clipper fans, if you're a Clipper fan listening to this, it'll be the same result opening night as we saw in 2018, 2020, 2021. Yeah. But there's going to be a little bit more fireworks maybe than 2021, because this time around, one of our good old friends, Patrick Beverley, will be sporting the purple and gold. Let me just ask you, because I've talked about it briefly, how does it feel? Somebody who, even though his time was 3.5 years with the Clippers? No, not 3. It was 4 years with the Clippers, correct? Yeah, 4 years with the Clippers. It felt like 3 because that first year he missed basically the entire season. But he was so into the this chapter post Lob City, and I call him the most anti-Laker Clipper of all time. But what do you think?
It's so tough, man. He's a pillar of the current Clippers culture. Yeah. Which is what makes it like, I don't know if it makes it hard, because like if you're Pat Bev, like, and you get the offer, well, you can say no, like,
from Minnesota to the Lakers and playing with LeBron, AD, of course.
Like, and you got traded away, like you're in Utah, like you don't want to play in fucking Utah.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, I think the level of respect that Pat Bev has for the Clippers is different than the level of respect he has for his other ex teams, if that makes sense, because he was embraced and such a pillar of the culture here. We've all seen that he's literally wearing Zubac's jersey, went down to like his calf.
Yeah, I was at that game.
That's dope. But like, it's gonna be a pain, man. He's gonna try and get into Paul George's head. He's gonna try and talk to Kawhi. Like, I mean, I still think we're gonna win for sure. Like, I'm truly not worried about the Lakers at all this year. But that opening night, Pat Bev energy, and like the stuff he was saying kind of on the stream after the Timberwolves won and stuff like that. It's like, he's a gamer. I'm not sure what else I really expected, right? If he was saying really nice things about us, I might be more worried. Like, I might be more freaked out that he had something really grand planned in opening night, but they have so many issues to figure out across the hall. Like, Pat Bev is the Lakers' 3rd best player.
Wow.
I mean, is he not? Like,
I mean, I'd say it's really all dependent on, I think one of the biggest question marks, obviously, is if Russell Westbrook is anything like he played last season. If that's who Russ is, just is now, then you may be right. I guess
he's close to it. I think he's closer to that than older or younger Russ.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
But like, I'm just worried that I'm worried, and I'm also excited to see how he tries to get under some of the Clippers' skin. How are you feeling about it? I've seen it hurts you a little bit, which I think is fair.
Oh, it definitely hurts, because he was just so anti-Laker. Like, he made that whole quote about, we're the guys that do it for the people in the back, the guys that don't get talked about. The whole kind of like, he embraced the underdog mentality so much. I feel like him with the Lakers just doesn't feel right. Like, he's such a grinder, and like, I'm not saying the Lakers haven't had players like that in the past, obviously, but you know, the moniker and the mantra of the Lakers is bright lights and what Jerry Buss created and Showtime and all that.
Yeah.
And Patrick Beverley's just not that. And
yeah.
And he just embraced, as you said, the Clipper culture so much. I think honestly in Lob City, it felt like we were like a fake Showtime to me. Like, we were like the excitement level of that, but we couldn't win. We didn't have the Magic or Kareem in like the half court. Yeah. to win
no
the championship.
charisma. We just had Doc Rivers and Chris Paul just like
and it was
being
fun.
mad about everything. But yeah.
But it seems like the kind of gritty underdog mentality and just being more of a grinded out team fits the Clippers more. And obviously I really like how he embraced when they don't talk about us, like 2019 was just such he can't avoid the headlines this year. I mean, Lakers, no matter if it's good or bad, you're going to get into the newspaper.
It's like Trez. Like when Trez went to the other side and it was like, dude, like the spotlight's bigger on you over there. Like if you fuck up, which Trez did a lot, like people are going to notice it and it will be talked about a lot more. Like if you thought the locker room pieces were bad for the Clippers, like it's just times 1,000 on the other side. So like, I mean, you mentioned that like the microscope on Pat Bev and Westbrook, literally that in and of itself might be their undoing. Like there's just going to be manufactured, for good and bad, there's going to be manufactured storylines in that locker room. And like, dude, if LeBron doesn't like Pat Bev, like
I personally don't see it though. I feel like LeBron's going to love playing with him.
He should.
Yeah, he's good. He's just going to spot up and shoot for him and play hard defense and just do little things. Like I'm more confident in the Bev being good for the Lakers than I was about Montrez.
Oh, totally agree with that. And like Austin Reeves is going to learn from him, which is like going to be a pain in our ass and stuff like that. But like on the whole, I still think we're good. I don't want to see him in the playoffs because playoff Bev for the Lakers, I don't even know I can't even like picture that in my head.
Playoff series against the Lakers is problematic in ways that the first of all, the tickets are going to be outrageous and the Lakers fans are going to flood our home games and it's going to be miserable.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But I guess I kind of am on your side with I'm not worried about the Lakers in terms of the winning and losing. I just can't. I'm not looking forward to seeing Bev just be Bev for the Lakers, and he's going to go so hard against us and just act like he's bleeding purple and gold, like he's Michael Cooper or something, like from day one. Like that's how he is.
You're totally right, bro. He's going to be like, he's going to have like a fake Lakers tattoo on his arm.
Yeah, literally.
Like, I've been down with this. And it's like, what? Like, is that real?
That's how he is, though. He's kind of like in whatever team he's on, he goes full on for that team, and it's us against the world, and everybody else is an enemy. Like, that's how he is. So it's just going to be annoying. And I hope all I hope is by the end of it all, and meaning the end of his Laker tenure or the end of Bev's career, I can still look back and like the guy. But I feel like there's going to be some things he says that are going to really annoy me. And one of them being a quote that he already had saying, I've been on both sides, and I kind of like it more on this side, meaning the Lakers side, and you get more respect around the city. Now, that's obviously true. You get more respect around the city, but you think he's just pandering to the fans, or do you think he genuinely already, before even playing a game, enjoys being a Laker more?
Okay, I will say this. If you've been in the Lakers locker room and you've been in the Clippers locker room, which are two different locker rooms at Staples, I can see how literally physically being in the Lakers locker room would be better. It's bigger. It's nicer. There's better lights. I think it's fan service. Like he knows how to play the game. We saw him be, doing media spots in the offseason. Like Pat Bev is a lot more media savvy than I think people give him credit for. He knows how to get fans riled up. He knows how to get them hyped up. But I think it's all fan service. I think it's all fan service. I don't know how you can go to an organization with a first-year head coach and say that they do things better than Ty Lue is doing things for the Clippers and stuff like that. So I got to give Pat Bev credit. He's a showman and he knows how to press the right buttons. But it's gonna look a lot different on the court when he's getting phased out. I will say that.
Some quick fan questions before we end. Favorite Clipper ever?
Favorite Clipper ever? Man, I know it's recent, but shit, this is such a hard question. So much has happened with the Clippers and their history over the last even just 6 years that it's like the level of importance is crazy. I'm going to go 1A and 1B. I'm going to go Blake 1A because how can you not?
What can you say about Blake?
My family's also my mom's family's from Oklahoma, so they were big Blake fans like before he was even in the pros and stuff like that. It's like I'm gonna go Blake, and dude, I gotta go Lou Williams. I know Lou. The bubble was a complete disaster, but dude, Lou, the picture of him with the nachos after the 31-point comeback, he had to beat him and Pat Bev were the face of this new version of the Clippers. Lou Williams won Montrezl Harrell a Man of the Year award. He was part of the most like efficient pick and roll of all time. Like he was just cool. He was smooth. He was also someone who bought into the Clippers system that Doc didn't even think he would buy into. Like Lou Williams came to the Clippers and was like, I'm going to retire. And Doc was like, I need you to lift weights and play defense. And Lou was like, I'm not lifting weights. And he was like, okay, that's fine. Play a tiny bit of defense. We'll figure out how to use you. We'll be good to go. Like, I think Lou helped set the bar for kind of guys buying in a little bit for the Clippers. And he just, he the triple double in Chicago. Like, yeah, I could watch the Williams Clippers highlights all the time. I cried when he got traded. I'm not afraid to admit that at all for that Rondo bullshit trade. But I think I got to go Blake and I got to go Lou. Who's your favorite Clipper?
That's a really tough question. It used to be
it's
when
hard,
we had him.
Man.
When we had him, it was Chris Paul because I grew up playing point guard and I really adored Chris. Like he was a point guard. He was the first superstar point guard that we had in my lifetime. So I would say it was Chris. And then, here's the weird thing about Chris. I feel like I still love him when I think of Clipper Chris, but I don't want him to win anything without us. Like I really don't. I don't. I'm sorry.
I totally agree, bro.
But here's the thing. I don't blame him for leaving. At the time when Glenn Rivers was president of basketball operations, his co-star was really injury prone. And after that Utah series where Chris Paul really carried us, I was like, I honestly don't blame. And he honestly, I think, realized he didn't need to be he needed to be the secondary player. And I think that was a good adjustment he made. And he's had closer chances to winning a ring without us because of that, in my opinion. But I'd say, I don't know if it's still Chris Paul, but, Paul George and Terrence Mann really in that Utah series won me over like big. I mean, Terrence Mann didn't have to.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so
Paul,
I think we should maybe do a follow-up
great.
episode about this. But is Paul George like one of the greatest Clippers ever already?
Oh, 100%. I think, and you know me, I'm really big into basketball,
right?
Because the second round thing, it was such a big deal for us fans to get past that second round, and he did it. And he was the one that led us past it those last two games when the going was. And another thing I mentioned on a couple pods ago was he's gotten more of a chance to play in front of the Clipper fans than Kawhi has so far because of this last season. Because the first season, I guess Kawhi played a little bit more, but then we didn't get to see a playoffs with those guys. And then 2021, basically the entire year was no fans. And then we got the most famous game in Clipper history was not Kawhi involved. It was Paul George. And then last season, coming off that, it was 30 games of Paul George. So I feel as though and it's crazy because I was not even – because coming off the shoulder surgery, I mean, I was excited about Paul George, but I was pretty sad we let Shea go. I was so excited about Kawhi, though. Sure. But now I've grown to like Paul as much, if not more.
Dude, he reps Clippers in like every photo you see, unless he's like at his wedding. He's wearing Clippers gear. Like he genuinely loves being a Clipper. We brought all his friends over, and that's worked out pretty well. Like Reggie and his locker right next to each other. Like, no, man, PG, like he wants to retire a Clipper. He might be, I mean, low-key, not even low-key, the best Clipper ever. Like,
he might.
He puts on for the whole team. Like he backs it up. Like he's phenomenal.
And then my last question. Biggest Clipper heartbreak.
Oh my God.
There's so many to choose from.
We need another half hour, bro. Like, I think, and I know it was weird and it was the bubble and all that shit, but blowing that lead against Denver, man, like the fact that I gotta like wipe my head off, take my glasses off, talk about this. Like the fact that, so like anything could happen in the bubble. Everything really very much did. Like Daniel House like lost his marriage or whatever. Like that shit was crazy. Like Lou Will went out with Jack Harlow, which was a nightmare. Like, but just watching Doc play Trez against Jokic when it was just like, even people who don't watch basketball, if you just watch 5 minutes of those games, you're like, wow, that guy's really getting whatever he wants against that other guy. Maybe we should switch in it. Like Hannah, my partner, was like, why is he still out there? I was like, I don't know. Like, very good question. Like, that to me is the biggest what if. I think honorary mention is, I think it was 2015.
Yeah.
For me, that one's a little harder because like the Warriors were still like a fucking buzzsaw. Like I think they were still number one in offensive and defensive rating. But there's just so many. Like I think it's the bubble just because of recency bias, and we have so many that it's hard.
I mean, there's nothing worse than blowing a 3-1 lead, and we've done it twice.
Yeah,
those two come to the top of my head. What made 2020 the worst to me was not only did we have the championship player with Kawhi, it was we'd already seen what blowing a 3-1 lead was. And for me, living in LA, I constantly heard about that. Laker fans didn't forget. 5 years later, 3-1 against Josh Smith.
They will never forget, bro.
Josh Smith and Corey Brewer. Oh my goodness.
I have a story about that game. I was doing a stand-up show that game, and I'm watching the game at the venue where we're having the show, and I'm like, all right, Clippers, we got this. Let's do this thing. I get called up to do my set. The lead starts getting cut a little bit. I'm like, whatever, this is all good. I go up and I do my set. It's like 15 minutes or whatever. I come back and I'm just like, what the fuck happened? Like, to James Harden on the bench. And I was like, what is going on? Like, this is a goddamn nightmare. Like, I felt like I was just like falling into a pit. Like, that was brutal. That was almost so much of an anomaly that I hold it in less contempt than the Denver 3-1 series, right? Because, like, I mean, those two guys going off in that Rockets game, that you don't think that's ever going to happen. Like, that's just such an outlier. But you know that Jokic is going to be good against Trez. Like, you know it's going to happen every time. So, like, I think that's, for me, is what puts the bubble above it. That's
fair. I mean, I have to agree with that. But this was awesome. Let them know where they can find you. Definitely won't be the last time.
Oh, hell yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. You can find me at Twitter at Charles Mockler. Tweet at me if you don't like what I said. Tweet at me if you liked what I said. That'll be a good time. I also host a Clips and Dip podcast. We're over on the Twitter handle at ClippersPod. No idea how we got that handle, but we got it. Come listen to us and keep supporting Darian, y'all. He's putting out work for you guys. Locked On Network does so many good things to keep fans connected. It's daily. We all need this feed. Clippers basketball is almost here. I cannot wait to talk with you more about it and to let's just get it. Let's act as favorites, right? This is our year. Let's do it.
I want to act as favorites too. The only thing is, when that happens, I want to win every single. Actually, I think we're the best team, so I want to win every single game. So I'm just pissed.
82-0, bro. Let's go.
Yeah, why not? But if you want to find me, you can find me at Dime Dropper Pod. Remember to follow the Locked On Clippers Twitter account as well, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are now on YouTube. It's the best way to grow the show and answer today's question. I actually want it to be a little bit more of a longer, open-ended question. What does it mean for you to be a Clipper fan? Give us your Clipper story. Write it out. Take some time, not just yes or no. We want to hear it because Clipper Nation is the most tight-knit fan base in the league, and I will not have anyone tell me otherwise. Chuck, great having you. Any last words?
Hey, let's go Clips.
Go Clips.